It's the Dev Friday Show with Mark and Tim.
It is the Dev Friday Show. You know what? I was really excited. I was super excited because I tried to push last week's show. You know this, Mark. I tried to push last week's show up to our repository, and I was told I couldn't because there were conflicts. I'm like, that means I need to pull first, right? So I pulled these changes. I'm like, what has Mark done? Has he fixed the automation of our show? Has he rebuilt the entire site? I was very excited, very excited. I looked at the commit and I saw that Mark changed his bio. So that's what we got. We've got an updated bio on, what is it? devfridayshow.com. So go there now. You'll get last week's episode this week, you know, because we do this for the live stream, right? And then if you're listening, you get better audio quality, but you have to wait a week. So
it's called a baby commit, Tim.
Is that what it is? Small steps?
Small steps, baby steps, a little bit at a time.
Because you went from, I don't know what happened to Batman, man.
I've not been following Batman as much.
Really?
I've been. Okay.
Were you?
I'm all in the cloud now, Tim. I'm all in the cloud.
Was it amateur Batman historian?
It was amateur Japan. No, I'm sorry, amateur Japan tour guide. Now it's former Japan tour guide because I don't think I'm going to be.
Right.
Hopefully, I'll go.
Japan.
Hopefully, I'll be able to do a couple tours in the future, but I don't have any plans for that right now. So I thought I would update that.
Okay. And I forget. Were you a Batman historian, right?
Well,
is that what
I like to think of myself as, but
I forget. Now I forget.
There's
it's so long
many
ago.
People that know a lot more about Batman than I do. But yes, I'm a big Batman fan.
We got cloud engineer now, huh? That's the big change.
All in the cloud, Tim. My head's in the clouds.
It's all in the cloud. Now,
yep.
You think that this look? I'm sorry. For those of you listening to the podcast right now, the live stream has us both full camera, so you can see all of the glory of Mark's podcast setup, and even more of the boxes behind me. and it's Mark's opinion that this is a more professional look than our standard.
That's right.
Which is just zoomed up, 2 panels, 2 heads talking. So, leave a comment. How's that? I'm trying to drive engagement here, Mark. Leave a comment as to whether or not you like the 2 panels that are just us side by side, full screen, so you have half of me, half of Mark, or the bigger view with the background that shows both full cameras, my messy office, and Mark's remarkably clean office.
Well, I like to think of us as like the odd couple of tech.
Is that
so I think our backgrounds or our rooms and our offices, I should say, is representative of that.
Yeah, because in mine you could pick anything and we could talk about what it is behind me. In yours, there's a painting. That's I think, or a door, but I don't think the door has a story.
No, it's a baby Grogu.
Is that what the painting is?
Yeah, Mandalorian. Yeah.
I can't. Yeah. It's not. It's too far away with this zoomed out look. It's too far away. Let me get a little closer. Oh, now I can see it. Yep. All right. There you go.
So how you been, Tim? How's your week?
I have no idea. This week has gone. It was Thursday, and I was like, you know what? I should probably mix last week's and have it, AI generate a summary, which is terrible. I'm not gonna lie. The summaries don't feel like this podcast at all. So then I fire up ChatGPT. I give it the examples of my past summaries and say, can you take this rather dry approach and make it look like something I would write? And it did a decent job.
Well, I like that part of our podcast is always coming on and complaining about AI.
Yeah, like it's not doing enough of my work for me. I mean, come on.
It's like we're frustrated. It's like, please take over our jobs. Why haven't you done already?
We had a conversation at work. One of the other devs was saying, AI is not gonna take my job, but I'm gonna lose my job to AI because of the mistakes it keeps making. Because we were looking at something like, what's this? He goes, that was probably AI. So,
it's like a bad feedback loop that allows us to keep our jobs.
There you go. Or fire us because we trusted it too much. Anyway.
Well, have you been? Did you see Devin?
Devin?
Or is it Devin or Darren? I think it's Devin. Or Darren. No, it's Darren.
Well,
no, it's Devin.
If you don't know who it is, how am I supposed to know who it is?
It's the first AI engineer. I believe it's Devin.
Oh, come on.
Really? Devin is your co-pilot or pilot. What? I don't know.
What?
I tweeted or X'd about this or whatever.
You X'd about it. I guess I need to pay more attention to Mark's Twitter.
Yeah, I didn't spend too much time, but the video was a little bit interesting. Let me just take a look to see what was it. It was Devin. Yeah, it was Devin. Devin is in the driver's seat. That was the quote that I pulled out of that video.
From?
So Devin is the first AI software engineer. It was released at the beginning of this week, and it is maybe this will be the final AI to take over our dev jobs.
Doubt it. Gonna go with doubt it. And it's, you know what, I'd argue that it's not, because there's been plenty not even the Copilot things, but there's they call it GPT pilot and a couple others that are they attempt to be the persona of a developer that you give a task to and they generate the code and then you can check it, but it is definitely not, it's not a Copilot idea. It is we're going for full on generation.
Yeah.
And expecting then you to be more of the senior engineer that comes along and does the code review, nudges it in the right direction. So this is not, I mean, I would say that no, they did not introduce the first AI software engineer. They introduced the first AI software engineer that they introduced.
But Tim, it's completed jobs in Upwork.
Has it really? Has it really? You just trolling us from last week's conversation.
No, I'm dead serious. If you watch the video, I think it's like it's completed maybe what's something like 14% of the tasks is tried on Upwork. I don't know. It has some stat with that. But you know how you and I love Upwork, so it's kind of interesting.
Buy more tokens?
So that would have been the stat I want to see. How many tokens did it take to complete these tasks?
Here's Devin. The actual stat I want to see. Is what AI wrote the proposal that got the job, because I'm telling you, there's a lot of people that want that.
Yeah,
they want to know what proposal on Upwork will get them the job. Speaking of, I thought what was your advice, and on the LinkedIn. By the way, does anybody else call it Microsoft LinkedIn? Because that's what it is. I don't know if anybody else.
It is, but they don't go overboard with the brand. Actually, I kind of like how Microsoft, when they bought it, they kind of let LinkedIn be LinkedIn. So I don't see too much Microsoft.
No.
Yeah, just like I think they've done a pretty good job with GitHub. You know, behind the scenes, maybe there's how they're pushing it into more of like the GitHub is going to be your AI eventually. But I like the fact like Microsoft's done a pretty good job when they buy things. They don't seem to destroy them like Google does, or
Google just throws them away,
or Apple, or
does Apple destroy things it buys?
Well, they suck it into their ecosystem and kill off what it used to be, kill off the brand because they only want the Apple brand.
Okay, yeah. So I asked if I wanted to find a contractor or consultant who really knows Stable Diffusion, and the only reply I got from Oscar was to ask ChatGPT.
It's amazing.
That was it.
Well, Tim, you have to increase your engagement on LinkedIn. Then I think you'll get better quality responses. It'll take a bit of time.
Okay.
A little bit of effort, but I think it'll pay off.
I need Devin for that. Is there a Devin for engagement on LinkedIn? Can I just have a bot engage for me? Is that a possible? Is that fair?
Well, I know they do have a little bit of AI integration. If you pay for their LinkedIn Premium, they do have an AI assistant that could pop up.
They keep on wanting to sell me
posts, but it's really bad. And I've tried it a couple times, and it's like just like all these AI generators, especially with copy, it changes it so much, and also goes in a like it removes all of your personality from
in a completely different direction sometimes, right?
And it's like yeah, it's like the voice that it uses is almost like a little bit, I wouldn't say overboard, but kind of like just too much, too intense, and also just kind of, I don't know, it doesn't look at the tone and the context of what I'm trying to say in the initial text I'm trying to give it. Like if I give like a paragraph of text saying, okay, could you just review this for grammar, possibly, giving maybe some suggestions how to improve it, and then if you tell it to rewrite it, it just does something crazy with it. So yeah,
I thought I used a chat. What do they call it? Their GPTs, like the custom GPTs, to do the rewriting of the summarization, and it decently got my voice with a couple examples. Now and then it was also as every like generative text AI I've seen talks way too long. They have no idea how to be concise, right? Like I've yet to run into a generative AI like chatbot that doesn't think that its value is measured in the output of the words.
Well, you know what I would say, because I have been using Gemini a bit more.
How is Gemini?
even though Google's, they're not in my, you know, in my positive list of
no,
of companies that I
feel
want
as
to
soon as
work
you
with or work
really
for.
like Gemini,
they're going to take it
kill
away.
They're just gonna- yeah,
I
they're
know.
gonna be like, oh, you people use this, let's kill it.
But I was on Gemini because they recently updated the model, and it popped up on my the page saying, "Oh, do you want to subscribe for free to the Gemini Premium for 2 months for free?" I was like,
Ooh.
"Oh, why not? It's free."
What does that give you?
And well, it gives you just like the GPT 4.5 that they're going to release. It gives you a couple more features, faster responses. It used to
So
generate
their version of GPT.
It used to generate images, but then that kind of went sideways a couple weeks ago. So they don't do that. Well, they do it, but it's interesting. If you try to ask it to generate an image, it's very careful about it. It won't do it at first. You really have to prod it. And then honestly, I think because they've tried to pull that functionality until they can fix it. But yeah, I've been using Gemini, but one thing I've seen from it, especially comparing it to GPT or ChatGPT, is that it is brief. Like compared to the response you get, you actually have to prod it a little bit more for longer responses. And it'll give it loves its lists, so it'll give you kind of nice, kind of short lists, and then you can kind of just interact with it to try to get a little bit deeper if you need to. So I kind of actually like it where it doesn't go overboard with the responses initially until it actually knows a little bit more about what you're trying to ask of it.
Well, that's nice. I should give Gemini a shot then.
Yeah. And it's pretty fast. Yeah, and I do like the interface. But like I said, it's Google, so I don't know. I don't know. Yeah.
All right, I want to come back to something. LinkedIn Premium. Because LinkedIn keeps telling me I should try it. And I should try it so I can see who's visiting my profile without.
If they offer it, sometimes you can try it. If you never tried it before, you can get 30 days for free.
Right. But
I do recommend that, but then immediately just cancel it. Because it is really expensive. It's like even just for like the personal,
here?
they allow the primary thing
$30 a month.
I love how we just started streaming this on LinkedIn. Now we're gonna start complaining about LinkedIn.
I know, right? Immediately. $30 a month. What are they giving me for $30 a month?
Well, they give you they do allow you to see who checks out your profile, because they do hide that information.
Right.
You can see, this person from this
spy on the stalkers.
Yes. So you can have a little bit more information, but then even if people keep their profile private though, or they can turn the setting off, it'll still bring up blanks or kind of say, this person from this company, but you actually don't know the person's name.
Okay. So you know the person, but
yeah, it's kind of, it's not.
They work at Lytle Labs. So
Lytle Labs,
might not be able to figure out who they are.
Lytle AI Labs.
Yeah. Okay.
Also, you get the ability to send messages to people that you aren't connected with.
Oh, so recruiters buy this.
So if you really want to get into somebody's face, you could just start throwing out messages and requests to.
So LinkedIn Premium is for recruiters and salespeople.
Yes,
is that what you're telling me?
Or for someone who's looking to increase their network. I think it is interesting. And like I said, I have done the 30 days. I don't do much more than that. I do actually have it turned on right now, I should say, because I wanted to try it. Yeah, I wanted to try for one more month. I wanted to kind of do one big push as I'm trying to connect with some people during the next 30 days. So I'm trying to.
Well, if
I'm
you're
using
trying to
it.
hire people, Mark.
Oh, I'm not looking to hire anybody.
You know what you need? You need LinkedIn Recruiter, which I don't think they're really public about these prices, but based on what generative AI is telling me from some article, LinkedIn Recruiter is $835 a month.
Microsoft's making some money from that. I know.
What in the world?
Yeah.
$835. You better be recruiting a lot of people for that.
Yeah. So even like if you pay for the personal career plan, I think it's like 45. But then if you do like the business, which honestly, it's like they don't give you that much. Can't really send that many messages. It doesn't really have a lot of extra features except for like the learning content, which is kind of interesting. But if you pay for their business, which you get a lot more messages and a few more pieces of functionality. That's actually kind of nice. But it's also like $80 a month, so that's kind of crazy.
I don't.
Or $70.
Again,
$80.
It's this weird spot for me where it's like it feels like the value of that is when you're actually looking for a job and you don't have the money to spend on a very expensive subscription that may or may not benefit your search for a job. Then you get a job and you're like, well, I don't need this anymore. But that's when you have, I don't know.
I did hear from a friend who went through the job search process about almost like 6 months ago. She was probably out of work for between 6 to 9 months. And, she was getting career coaches. She was like, going through all the options. And she did say that when she went off the LinkedIn premium, she actually got fewer results, kind of fewer, kind of feedbacks, fewer followers. So she actually liked it. Actually did help it, which I don't know behind the scenes if they're juicing the algorithm if you pay for the premium and you get
I can imagine,
better results. So
more exposure to your posts.
Yeah.
Says the guy who posted once in like 3 years and only got one response. I wonder what happened when I quick turned on premium. Bet I get a bunch of people being like, I know Stable Diffusion. I'm here for you.
Like I said, they give a 30-day free trial, Tim. I think you should take advantage of it. Just try it out.
Wonder how the AI is going to summarize this. So the first 15 minutes talking about how much they didn't want to use LinkedIn.
So one thing I wanted to ask you, I want to talk to you about.
Uh-oh.
I'm a fan of the infrastructure as code, Tim. So I want to ask you, are you also a fan, or are you more of a ClickOps developer?
I don't even know what these things mean, Mark.
Well, you know what infrastructure as code is, right?
Kind of. But the
basically having like a YAML or JSON file that configures your infrastructure that you can,
and
makes it easier to deploys and to
right. So it's not really code; it's configuration that's committed,
and it gives you a way to say if you develop or design infrastructure, you can then move it between counts or move it between different staging, production, development. Makes it easier for setting up in different environments.
Would you also count like if I had a bunch of scripts and stuff that created or deployed or set up my infrastructure? That'd be infrastructure as code, right?
You mean some bash scripts?
Yeah, some shell scripts or even some API calls,
It could be, actually, you could build up your own kind of deployment model with your own bash scripts or Python scripts, and
okay,
you could automate yourself.
So but ClickOps is me.
ClickOps would be the opposite of that. Yes, you going into the console, to the like the AWS console or
the load balancer. I'm gonna go and I'm just gonna make one.
Yeah, you're clicking
UI.
You are a ClickOps professional.
Yeah, I'm not. You can. Let's just be very clear. Any potential teams that might want to work with me, you don't want me in your AWS panel. I'm just saying. I have no idea. No. I would mess it up very well.
So that's what I was curious about. So from your experience, how much actually have you done from a configuration standpoint, like configuring? I know you've done a lot with like S3 and deployments with that, but have you done anything like spinning up servers or
I don't do
setting up any VPCs or what do you?
That's another department. I write the code, and I don't even.
But even as an API guy, the API developer, you don't need to interface with that at all.
No, for most of the work that I do, there's a DevOps department that handles all the infrastructure. So that's very nice. I kind of understand how it works, but no, I don't want to mess with that.
Okay.
If it's something that I'm working on, I will be very drawn to a container-based distribution, which I think that fits in the infrastructure as code bucket, because you're saying here's a Docker file that creates whatever set of containers, or technically images, that will then run as containers that I need, and we'll launch them in some type of orchestration. Then once you get to like Kubernetes and stuff like that, that's way out of my depth personally. But yeah, because well, I mean, that was back in the day. That's where Docker came from, right? Was it .cloud? Who was like, it wasn't her, it was like the Heroku like thing for launching any stack. And they were the people that kind of pioneered Docker.
And then eventually Google took it over, but they haven't killed that yet.
Well, they haven't killed Docker. I feel like Docker would be difficult to kill, but was it .cloud?
No, I can't remember the name of it. Yeah, I watched a documentary on that. There's a documentary about
it's .cloud.
Yeah.
Because I remember actually trying to do, or I think I did some deployments with .cloud back in the day, and then kind of, as it went from what I believe is, I believe, I'm not, my history may be fuzzy here because it's been a long time, but I feel like you had a .cloud file that was kind of similar. It would configure what were essentially container, and then they just moved to saying, oh, we just run Docker because that's our thing anyway. So yes, so from that perspective, if there's anything that I'm going to work on myself, it's probably going to be running on a Docker container that I can launch someplace, or a set of Docker containers that I can launch someplace.
So this week I was working on trying to set up a pipeline.
A pipeline?
A pipeline. Because you know me, I've deployed a lot of static websites on S3 and then CloudFront, and I've actually gotten
those are great.
Pretty good at it, right?
Honestly,
and especially with the CDK and with
Yeah.
CloudFormation. Yeah, I've actually gotten pretty good at doing that. But I was thinking, okay, I want to build this out a little bit more. I also want to, you know, when I'm working on setting up my kind of infrastructure,
Are you talking about our site?
One of a few sites, yes.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
Okay.
Go on.
So setting up the infrastructure for that, but also doing it in a well-architected, best practice way, Tim, with multiple
Well, you're
accounts.
a cloud architect now, right?
Well, yes, with multiple accounts, right?
Not
on
a
AWS.
sponsor, but Mark is a cloud architect.
Yes, I haven't talked about my cloudbuild.co yet, but if you're curious, you can go to
cloudbuild.co.
Yeah.
I could just go there right now.
You could, yes.
Cloud build, BUILD, or built?
Build.
BUILD.co. Cloudbuild.co. Is that if
or
I
you
was
could go
if I
to
wanted to go, that's
you
what
could also go to cloudbuildsolutions.net and it'll redirect you there too.
Cloudbuildsolutions.net.
Yeah.
All right. Either one of those would work.
Either one, yeah.
Either one.
Okay. So anyway, I'm working on setting up a pipeline, and I wanted to do this with the CDK because you know how I love the CDK.
Right.
Even though it has super rough edges, they did do an update to it over the past week. AWS said that they have improved the performance of CDK by 40%, which is kind of interesting. I haven't seen that 40% improvement yet.
It's not the 40% you use, Mark.
It's not the 40% I'm looking for. But the one thing about the CDK that because it basically all it does is just generates a CloudFormation template. And have you seen the CloudFormation template before?
I think
it's not the easiest thing to work with. It's a very verbose, either a YAML or JSON file. That
I can say, it's like YAML, right?
Yeah, that defines your infrastructure. So CDK is a way to programmatically, generate that, using TypeScript or using Python or whatever language that supports. And so I wanted to set up a pipeline, also doing with a multi-account kind of setup here. So I want to have like a production account, deployment account.
So what you're
staging.
Describing there is very much infrastructure as code, because you're saying you're going to use like Python or some language to describe a configuration file that then will launch a set of AWS services that work in concert.
Correct. And all the CDK does is just generate that configuration file, and then basically has it doesn't have state between, but it does allows you to do, deploys, be able to do rollbacks, and allows you to, has some, and also if you do an update to an existing stack, it can, manage that better. But it is basically just CloudFormation. CloudFormation is the issue where if it's like slow, or just if you have like technical issues, like when you're actually trying to do your deploys, you're getting CloudFormation kind of errors or responses back. But they said they improved that over the past week. So that's kind of interesting to kind of watch and to track out. But what I was doing though, I was trying to set up a multi-account deployment strategy where I have my production account, my staging, testing accounts. So I can be able to, with the CDK, to be able to do deploys between multiple accounts. And it was going pretty well. But I ran into this issue that it took me forever. And going back to AI, I tried to get AI to help me, and that was a disaster. Where, just doing something simple too.
I've heard not like other stories that AI has been reasonably good about generating some of those very complex AWS files.
But is it the code that you actually want to have? Does it meet?
I don't know, but like when you
it's good. It's great at generating code. It's just whether or not that code is actually what you intend to be.
It wasn't not the cloud development kit code, or not the code that would call that, but actually, like, I think it's like the cloud files. It's decent. Like if you want to say, I need to do this, give me the YAML for it.
Yeah. It's
reasonably, I guess, good at that, because I'm guessing that's a very well-known, documentation's out there, and it's YAML. So you can, I've had people say that they've been successful with it spitting out at least the beginning part that they can then.
Oh, I'll tell you what kind of response I get. We'll get there. Because I spent a good look at what I usually do with AI. Is like it sounds good at first. So I'm saying, okay, I have this problem. Can you give me a little bit more information about this? It'll give me some code back. You look at the code, you try the code. Oh, this code was for a previous API version a couple of years ago, and you're like, oh yeah, those libraries don't exist anymore. They're renamed or something like that, or those properties or methods don't exist on that object or class that you're trying to interface with. So anyway, Yes, definitely went down that road with that. But I was just trying to do something simple. Okay, I want to set up this pipeline. I want to keep it simple, even though I have an idea where I want to, go back to containers. Yeah, I have containers, VPCs. I eventually want to set up with this. I want to keep it super simple. All I want to have is basically just deploy a static website, to a to CloudFormation to make a distribution there, and then to be able to just connect it to a domain. Right. So simple as possible, which I've done a million times. And if you do that within one CDK stack, it's really super easy. Okay. One thing I ran into issue was, doing the CloudFormation, or I'm sorry, doing the distribution, the CloudFront distribution. That was pretty straightforward, getting that up there. But then connecting that to a domain that also, because of the SSL cert.
Right. Well, that's okay. So that
I ran into an issue with that.
I've done that. Like if you're going to talk about ClickOps, I've done that by hand when I had to do just like, let's get this thing up and out there in the public. So you put an S3 and you're like, oh, I can't put it on S3 because it's not, it's not HTTPS. So now I have to put a CloudFront distribution in front
and
of
CloudFront makes that very easy. It's super easy to do that. Yeah, it's nice.
Yeah.
The only thing issues I run the CloudFront distribution is to make sure you can what's it called? Deactivate. I'm sorry, I forget the term for this. If you actually had to deactivate the previous distribution, if you try to make an update, sometimes those can hang around if you don't have that setting turned on.
Yeah, I forget. I don't even remember what that is, but I remember struggling with it at one point.
So, like I said, the biggest issue I had was trying to get the distribution to get connected to a domain on another account, because I have multiple accounts.
Oh, yeah.
And I want to keep my domain and the SSL cert on my primary account. And I'm only going to use the main account, like the root account for the organization that I set up, really just for maintaining the domains and the SSL certs, right? And I'll use other sub accounts for everything else. So connecting
those actual sub accounts of that main account.
Well, the way ADAS organizations work, you have one primary organization account, and then you could have sub accounts linked within that. Now, usually organizations are just great for like billing purposes, but also just for having like a single sign-on, which works really, really nice. To kind of just do permissions for like one account. So I have one developer account that I use that I can just kind of easily click between the different accounts. So it's really nice how easily to go between them.
One main account for your certs and your domains, and then you have separate accounts for either different
for all the workloads. For all the different workloads or tasks I want to run. I'm just going to do that with separate accounts, just to do a little bit better. So the biggest issue I had was trying to connect that distribution to the domain, because the domain resides in another account. So there is within the CDK, there is some cross account functionality. When you bootstrap your CDK project, you can say, okay, these are the accounts that I trust. These are the accounts that we can use for like looking up different services. So it does provide some connections with it. But one thing I learned was that with an SSL cert, though, it's a little bit more stringent in how you can actually connect those. Because what I was trying to do is can I get that cert from my main account and basically connect it to my distribution with it? So I could look up a domain. I could kind of look up the domain. I can connect that, but I couldn't get the SSL cert, even if I saved, made a connection like using the parameter store and the systems manager, and I tried to do a bunch of different things to try to get it. I could not get that cert, and I looked it up and saying that is the one issue of like, because your cert is really tied, like SSL cert is tied to your
the account, right?
Like the key management system, the KMS.
Yeah.
So it's unique to that account. So what you could do, and what I did do, you could just generate a cert on each account, and you could use them on the exact same domain. And so you can at least get half of the way there. But then what I need to do then, saying, okay, and I can even, in my main account, I can then access Route 53 and connect do a CNAME, do like actually it's an A record, to do like basically an alias to the actual CloudFront distribution. That worked fine. I was able to do that. But actually then to get the SSL to work, though, I had to go in and manually click it through. I had to go in and actually connect to create the cert to actually make that connection. Yeah. So it was a manual process.
To request the certificate be issued for it.
Because I could not connect the because I have to validate the domain. The issue is primarily with the domain validation. Because if I don't have the domain under my account, it can't validate it. So what I had to do is then go in and then do like a DNS, kind of a manual DNS validation.
Like a text record or something on it, right? To prove that
it's just a CNAME,
Oh, is it okay? A CNAME to the CloudFront?
Yeah. Yeah.
And you can't orchestrate creating that CNAME, or is it just like you can't orchestrate the prompt that says you need to create the CNAME?
It was it would not allow me to, I could create a record. I could create the record of the distribution. I just could not create the CNAME for the actual certificate. I couldn't connect like the CNAME that it needed for for the validation on the other account. I couldn't make that connection. So I was going and I was trying to get AI to help me with this. I was going through Gemini, I was going through ChatGPT, and what was happening is they kept giving me responses back saying, "Oh yeah, this is possible. This is possible. Do it this way. Do it that way." And then it kept giving me examples of like really good looking examples of using the CDK libraries. And I could tell that some were from a previous version, but I tried to, then go to the documentation, try to, match it up as best I could. But then also would just give me properties that looked really good, that made sense. Oh yeah, that property would totally solve the issue of how I'm trying to make this connection to the CDK. And then I go to the documentation, it doesn't exist at all. So I'm even wondering, was it actually hallucinating and telling me methods and properties that I should use that has never existed?
That happens.
And that's dangerous. I'm like, that's crazy. And then also, which, I love AWS, love me some Amazon, but Amazon Q needs a lot of work. Which I don't know if because it's really primarily in the console where you can interface with Q. It's
supposed to, like, it's tuned to answer questions about AWS services, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes. So it'll give you very general information. The one thing that drives me crazy though, they really are making, they put that Q icon like right in the console, and they really want you to click on, start interacting with it, but it has no context to where you are at in the console. So if I'm like writing like a trust policy or like a, like an IAM policy or trying to define a role, I'm trying to say, okay,
you can't give it a contextless question.
I can't. I just want to say, look at my current policy that I have, and then I want to do this. Give me a suggestion of how I should write that. It can't do it. Yeah, it won't need to do it. What it will say is like, oh, well, let me know about an AWS service that you would like to know more about. I can help you out with that. Like,
it's like they invented a terrible chatbot.
Well, it's just so early on. It's almost like it feels like they just should not have released it yet. They're just trying to get out there into the AI chatbot race, and I feel like they could have held it back just a little bit more.
And if I'm not mistaken,
or just made it very general. It's like, just keep it on the consumer side. Don't show it to the DevOps people are trying to solve problems in the console. I don't know. I think it can cause more harm than good now. But
if I'm not mistaken, you can seed a knowledge base of sort, and I forget what they call it, but it's one of their, is it a vector database, something like that. You can seed it with information, and you can turn Q onto your own set of information.
Oh, really? Okay.
I believe that's accurate.
Okay.
But if you're saying like they've already done that with AWS and it's terrible.
Well, I haven't. Yeah, I have not taken a look at the APIs with Q or what kind of functionality you can or configure that with yet. But it just feels like it's there. It's so tempting to use because I'm like, oh, it's the AI right in the console. I can only ask it a question, and then I'm like, I don't trust it all now.
Yeah.
And it's interesting. I trust Gemini so much more to know more about AWS
than Q.
Q does, yeah. So
that's terrible. now that Google knows that, though, they will kill Gemini.
Probably. Yeah. So I just want to get your experience. Have you ever gone through an issue of
like that? I mean, I don't try to. I guess you're trying to split them into accounts for better billing and better isolation of things.
Better isolation of the resources. Yeah. Just so I can kind of for doing
like, this is costing me this versus here's the bill at the end of the month.
Yeah.
Okay.
Which I've done before with kind of other platforms, and especially just working with like GitHub Actions and like to working with other systems that actually doing deployments and setting up a CI/CD pipeline is actually not that bad. But yet doing it now, trying to really trying to think about what's kind of the best account strategy and kind of for having like an organization and then having a good template for that, and just seeing what's good, what's bad when it comes to like the CDK and CloudFormation in regards to setting that up. Like I said, it does, when you bootstrap your CDK project, it's really nice. You can just list accounts that you want to make sure that you trust. And when you do your deployments, you have like a profile feature, which like a single sign-on. It's like basically just to use like one account to authenticate with, but then I could use different profiles within it. So there's a lot of pieces that work really, really well together, but there's just some rough edges of finding like between, what you can do between accounts. But I think AWS is making it better.
And it makes, to me, like the idea that you had to issue a cert for each account makes sense.
Yeah, that does.
Because you could revoke the cert for a particular.
Which But I didn't know that at first. That was also the part of the reason
Yeah.
why I was struggling, which I didn't know that
Yeah.
at first I had to do that. So I was like, oh, it's like, because I thought, well, okay, I want to have just one cert for my domain,
Right.
keep it clean like that. And I was like, oh, then because I also know that when you do a distribution, that when you use the CloudFront domain, that has a certificate that already was configured for that. So I
Right.
thought, okay, I could just use that. That's what I was just hoping for. But I actually had to make a cert specifically for that domain to verify the domain. But it was the verification of the domain that since I did not own it in that account, that was the part that I had to do manually.
Yeah, and I kind of remember doing something like that. Well, I recently walking through, and I set up an S3 site to just forward to a Notion. If you know Notion, that note taking
Yeah.
thing, I've been playing with that because everybody
Oh,
talks about it, and I don't know, it doesn't. I don't find it as useful as everybody else does, but I will be honest, to throw together a one-page thing where I can just upload stuff. To have like a little download section, a little description about something.
It is interesting how people are using Notion as basically like an online editor for like a web, like sort of like a web landing page.
Yeah.
So
that's exactly what I
they
did.
want to put up links or documents or even forms. They need to fill out information. You know, it's basically just a generator for that. It's kind of interesting.
That's exactly what I used it for.
Yeah.
And then I set up a S3 distribution that did nothing but forward to it. And because I think I had the domain with Route 53. So I kind of remember having to do something like that with the distribution, with the CloudFront distribution, where it's like, yeah, what's your domain? We'll generate. And then at some point, we used to pay for SSL certs. Like once upon a time, you bought those, right? You remember those? Like I don't even know.
Well,
maybe Amazon's charging. Maybe AWS is charging me for these, but they're just.
Well, AWS charges you for a hosted zone, so you do pay for that each month. It's $1 per hosted zone.
Okay, so maybe that's
so that can kind of So you do.
But like you remember when you actually would go out and have to buy a cert and then get it and install it, and now it's just like, oh no, we just do that for you.
And then renew it each year, and then have to go into the server and update the cert. Yeah, that was always a pain.
Was it Let's Encrypt that kind of pushed everybody to be like, why are you making this costly?
Yep. Yeah, Let's Encrypt was great. The biggest issue I had with it was just automating it so it would renew each year. So having it, you have to install like the server libraries that it wants you to serve and make sure that it
reach out, fetch it, and generate it. And now, like you say,
that was the trickiest thing about that
automatically anyway with their own certs, and they're things are getting simpler in that regard. That's for sure.
Well, which makes sense because if you have SSL everywhere, it just makes the internet more secure.
It's like why wouldn't you? This is not. I mean, it's not a concept that's difficult or novel. So why are we making it something that is hard for people to, accept? Which is, I think, was Let's Encrypt's perspective. And then everybody's like, oh yeah, I guess that is a good perspective. So, oh, did we get a comment? Did I see a comment on this post? Somebody just told me somebody commented on a LinkedIn post. Now I got to go see if it's actually this live stream, because that'll tell me if we get chat in here. We do get chat. Keith Casey says, I'm going to put this on the screen. Right? You ready for this? Putting it on the screen.
Whoa.
Shirts were stupidly expensive back in the day. Yes, Keith. Yes, they were. And I would reply to you on LinkedIn if Read and Stream let me do that, but it does not. But yeah, they were stupidly expensive. I remember like did you ever use OpenSRS or 2Cows? Like way back in the day, they were like the original,
not the open one, but yeah, 2Cows. Yes,
2Cows was OpenSRS. They were the same
thing. Okay,
I think they were the same people, if I'm not mistaken. Back in the day, and they were the first. Like you could get a reseller account just so you could get affordable.
Oh, I love the reseller accounts.
Names, right? Because you'd buy all the domain names. Me and you both know that.
That was my first entrepreneurial venture, Tim.
Yeah.
I can't remember which year this was, and I don't want to age myself. Even though I know I'm losing hair. People watching this video now, I'm looking older each week with the amount of hair I have. But my first entrepreneurial venture was, and I think actually it was probably like in college or high school, was getting a virtual server with Plesk installed, and then trying to resell accounts through that. I was like, I can make millions of dollars by reselling this server.
I too can be a shared host. Yes.
And think about so many. And I did it for a little bit. I think I got like one or two. I think I got a couple churches on it.
My first job was a boutique web hosting company.
Yeah. And that makes me think of like how many small businesses that sold hosting were just basically did that. just had like their own Plesk or their own what was it? There was a C panel.
C panel was the other one. Yep, Plesk and C panel. Those are the two.
Yeah.
Just set up shared hosting and go for
Because
it.
Plesk did make it very easy to do that. As long as you had, as long
for their security, though. I'm just gonna say it wasn't as isolated as everybody may have thought it was.
But man, if you wanted to create some sub accounts and start to sell that, man, they did make that pretty easy.
Exactly right. $10 a month, you get 10 meg of hosting here.
Create your plans.
That's enough for everything you're going to want.
Provisioning accounts was super easy. Yeah. It was nice. Even the subdomain, because we're back in the day configuring the like a multi-domain server. With like Apache Nginx or whatever, how to configure that.
Oh boy. And
doing that manually can take a little bit of work, especially if you're going to try to host client websites on one server.
Exactly.
But then
the Apache file you would need, the virtual hosts, or what I forget what.
Managing virtual host files. Yeah.
Was it virtual host?
Yep, it was.
And you'd have like this one goes to this user, this one goes to this user, and then if I'm not mistaken, would you? Man. This is back in the day. Would you set up Apache to run as a different user for each of your sub accounts, or would it? No, you would set up your files to be owned by those sub accounts, and they would be group readable probably. So Apache, I don't know.
The only thing that I remember I had issues with going back to the SSL was having multiple domains with their own SSL configurations.
That was tough. On one IP address.
Yeah,
I remember that. I forget how we had to get around that.
Some hoops. I even forget how. Yeah, I think I purposely forgot that. That's pain. I remember trying to configure that. But good days. This is really what our show should be, Tim. Two old guys reminiscing. Two old developers.
That's what everybody
about the good old days.
About the good old days. Well, I'll say this. All we did was talk about how much we didn't want LinkedIn Premium, and look at the exposure we've gotten. We now have comments on.
And eventually, like I said, I'm trying to get you to think about doing a Twitch channel. So we should, and we'll have the young ones, the young minds, the ones that are going to say that we're bald and we're old and they're asking us why are we doing this. We need to get some feedback from them too.
I remember years ago. I don't know if we told the story on this podcast, but years ago, I went to a Hacker Olympics. Which is not nearly as interesting as it
was. That the one in New York?
Yeah, it was
Josiah.
Yeah, with Josiah. Yep, you got it. Went to the Hacker Olympics, where it was kind of like a hackathon meets try to do these like activities in short amount of time type thing. And one of them, they took apart a Dell, like an old Dell desktop, all the components out, and it was like reassemble it. And I was so surprised by how many. I wasn't that old then. But even then, there were developers that were, obviously younger than I, say college-age developers, and I was not in college anymore, that were looking at these components and had no idea what to do with them. And I was just like, I'm surprised. It makes sense. It's not a judgment, but just like my context was, I grew up building my computers, and now there's that, what is essentially, I guess, the next generation of developer there that doesn't even know what the hardware components are. And it was just surprising to me, because like now it's, I just get it all put together and it works, and I don't necessarily know what the underlying infrastructure of how, at least at a high level, computers work.
One thing I didn't talk to you about, because we took a long break before and after Christmas.
We did take a bit of a break, yeah.
But during the Christmas break, one of the things
someone buy you a GeForce video card for Christmas that you built a computer around? Because that's what you said you would.
No, better than that. Better than that, Tim.
Better than that.
I bricked a Dell Precision tower.
Was this one of those old? Is this one of those old rack mount servers you've been buying to build your little server farm?
No, like I said, it's I got access to an old Dell Precision server. It's not that old. It's probably about like 5 or 7 years old. It's a Xeon. I put a lot of memory in it. I'm just using it for kind of testing and some development. Actually, I am streaming off this right now. This is actually on my desk here. So
this is the
computer. Pretty well. Yeah, this is a computer. So I bricked it because I was trying to do something. I was going back and forth installing Linux on it, and I was just trying to do different setups here. And I was in the BIOS. I had to turn off, some settings for like the secure boot, just to kind of, for
Yeah.
Windows. So I was playing around with it, and I think I checked the wrong things. I had the option, like, do you want to make this permanent? Like, do you want to make this as a temporary change, like a temporary
Oh, right. Boot once change. Yeah.
or a configuration? Do you want to make it permanent? So I made it permanent after doing something really bad, and I pretty much bricked it where I could not boot. The video would not display, would not post. It was a bad issue. And I was like, I can't believe I really just screwed this up. I did so many things trying to, like, I flipped the switch on the motherboard to try to reset the I popped off the battery to try to drain it, and I was doing every single thing to try to see if I could reset it would not. So the change I did actually wrote it to the chip, the BIOS chip. Yeah. I was like, and it would not go away. And I was like, oh my gosh, this is crazy. I went on eBay. I bought a motherboard, the same motherboard.
You got the EEPROM off of it?
No, I bought a new motherboard.
Just the whole motherboard.
The whole motherboard. And I was really like, oh man, I don't know if I'm going to be able to, this is going to work. But the guy was only selling it for like 40. I think I only paid like $40 for it, $50. It was shipping included. I was like, okay. And I got it. It was like at a tech store from Texas or something like that, like a parts store. And he shipped me, got it. Is in great condition. And I had to do the whole thing, replace the whole motherboard, and it worked. I was like, whoa, I remember doing this back in the day, and putting PCs together, and I still have it.
I actually did that last Saturday. So I finally got I think I was telling you in the last show, finally got the GeForce. I should know, but whatever. Is it still behind me? A GeForce 4070 Ti.
Ooh, look at you.
So I finally got like a video card that I want. It was the price point. It's like, okay, it's enough, but it's not like whatever. I forget what their new one is. That's like $1,200. No, I don't need that. There's no reason for me to have that. But I at least have a decent video card, this thing now. So if I want to do some stuff with it, I could. So I got the card. And since I was getting the card, I was like, you know what? I really want. The case I had wasn't bad. It was a decent case. It was a big case. It had lots of channels for wires and all the things that you need. But it looked like a gamer case. And I don't need a glass side to my PC.
Did it have LED lights in it? Did it shine pink and purples and stuff like that?
I mean, so does my motherboard, which I don't need. And I can turn that off. But it had lights. It had, big glass.
Tim, you could just put that PC behind you in your room. And when you were doing this podcast, we would get, especially when you get to Twitch, we're going to bring in so many viewers just because of your shiny, bright, lit up
and
gamer
purple.
PC.
I think purple's the color. Is that usually the color we like the
better? If we can see some fans like spinning inside of there. Okay. Oh my gosh.
Maybe LEDs in the fans.
Yeah. There you go.
Concentric thing. And kind of can hypnotize you. Anyway, so I wasn't necessarily a fan of it. Like I said, it was for putting it together and dealing with everything. It was a nice case. So there's nothing wrong with the case. It just wasn't the case that I wanted. So I got the Nebula series case from System 76. So my Saturday was taking everything out of the old case and putting it in the new Nebula case. And I like the design of the Nebula. I just found that every time I would go to do something, I'd be like, oh, the thing I just put back in, I shouldn't have put back in. Let me take that out again. So, and I don't know if you can hear, like, that. There's a couple fans that I can't figure out with my motherboard how to be able to toggle them live, like they're chassis fans, right? Like, or whatever they call additional fans. And I'd love to be able to turn them off and on as needed, because it's a little bit more of a fan noise than I want in the room. But I was really happy with that process. But man, it took forever.
Did you have any issues fitting? Because the video card is pretty big, especially for the 4070. So it's a good size.
I actually bounced it back and forth a couple places because of the motherboard I had. It had two video card slots, which are, I don't know, the PCIe 16 or whatever the PCIe slot width, or it's been so long. Sorry, people.
Channels.
Channels. That's right. That's right. Yeah. And then because of I think I bought the motherboard in a weird place. It doesn't have the right headers for USB 3, or for what USB 3 headers on a motherboard modern cases want. So I had a little card, the PCIe card, that would give me those headers for USB 3, and USB 3 and a USB-C form factor. It's right, whatever. And that required more channels than the one that was open where I put the video card initially. So I had to move the video card down to the other PCIe slot that would fit the video card, so I could use the other one for the for this extra kind of card. And as I'm doing it, I'm just kicking myself because I do want to upgrade the motherboard and upgrade the processor eventually. And it's like I should have just done that right now because this is so. I mean, it can be an enjoyable process, but I had a
Yeah.
working computer and I still wanted a working computer, and I had to take everything out of one case. But now that it's all in one case, hopefully next time, and I know the case now, so replace. But I'm gonna have to replace the motherboard to get a new processor because whatever chipsets and such. Well, maybe. I guess I could get the same AMD processor that fit in
Oh,
this
don't get
slot.
AMD. No, don't do that.
No, I run AMD. What are you talking about? Don't get AMD.
I've had more issues
What,
with AMD
what is
video cards in
what
the
is
past. So
all
like,
right?
yeah,
Now
don't
here
do
we
that.
go.
Yeah,
Now here we go.
no.
This is
Now
what
I'm
everybody's
only,
waiting for.
even though AMD has a better history of supporting Linux, which
How
I
about it?
which
Yeah.
I agree. And honestly, if you're going to build a Linux system, it probably is a better bet to do
Yeah.
in NVIDIA. And I'm running this on I have a GeForce card, and they
But no, okay, wait.
want to have
no.
now. I'm running.
I have a GeForce video card in here intentionally. I don't have an AMD card in.
Because
I'm talking about the processor.
oh, the processor, the
I want
AMD
to upgrade the
processor. Yeah.
processor,
Oh,
and I
okay.
could probably
Yes.
I can upgrade my
Yeah.
current processor with the
Mhm.
same slot for AMD. I forget what the process what the chip. What do we? We're talking about this hardware stuff, and I've lost all of my connection to what do we call it? Is it just the slot for the microprocessor?
The CPU slot. Yeah.
Yeah, okay. Yeah,
Or socket. It's a
the
socket.
socket. Yeah. So it's the socket form factor.
When people watch this, we are software developers. We're not. We
Yeah,
don't do hardware.
yeah.
We just hack our way around if we.
We
can.
grew up with it, and then we were like, "Oh,
Yeah.
it's built. I don't need to worry about this anymore." And we delve into it every once in a while and say all the wrong words, as you are seeing right now.
Actually, that brings me a good question.
Yeah.
So, did you have in your early career or early when you were first learning about tech, did you have to choose going the software route or the hardware route? Like,
I mean, it didn't feel like a choice, right? Because for those who know my background, I don't know how much that's known. I have a 2-year degree in electrical engineering,
Yeah.
an associate's degree.
You did more. Yeah, you did more from a academic or coming up with, or did probably a lot more hacking than I did.
On the electronic side, yeah. But when I got out of school, there were no easy jobs that I could get. So I had done programming in the past, and I quick read the PHP manual and went to work for the web hosting company, right? Because there was a job that was open there. So I guess if you want to say, like, I was wanting to go to the direction of hardware, but turns out, with what was available, I could get a job on the software side.
Okay.
And I still would love to do more embedded stuff. Like, that's kind of like, if I get the time, that's really intriguing and fun, and I like it, and I like playing with that side of things. But to choose between the two, I guess no, it kind of chose me, just because of the availability and what opportunity was out there. So yeah,
that totally makes sense. Yeah, I was always drawn to the software and kind of learned the hardware just based on necessity. Like if something broke, or if I was cheap, didn't have any money and just need to upgrade, like add some memory or I don't know, just to play with the hardware. I always remember kind of tinkering around with hardware, but never thinking of like, oh, I could actually do anything serious with it or make it a career out of it. I never really never thought about that. But yeah, I was always into it just because of wanting to improve my setup.
Oh, so just like
as efficiently as possible with little money as a kid. Yeah.
Right. That's what I'm talking about. I want a faster process because there's a couple CPU intensive things that I do. And it's like, oh, I could cut down the time on that with the newer processor. And I could either get the new processor, which would require me to get a new motherboard, or I could get a more affordable but better processor that would fit in the same socket. But if you're talking about with hardware versus software, like there's that middle ground where you're doing things in kind of that embedded world, which I feel is I don't know. It's hard for me because I'm not in it, but as I observe it, I feel like it's probably more software than it is hardware, at least in my mind. Because when I think of like a very much hardware focus, it's like you're designing circuits, and I've tinkered with that, and I think it's cool, and there's some really simple things I'd like to do. It's like, oh yeah, I understand how that circuit works. I could design one. I could go out to PCBWay, not a sponsor, by the way, but PCBWay, and have them fabricate the board, right? But a lot of that I feel like is these little tiny things that would fit on top of an Arduino, top of a microcontroller. Like And then it's like, well, you're just doing embedded stuff. So you've got a small computer that understands simple instructions and you can write a simple program for. And then to that, you can attach some components that are not necessarily complex to understand what they do and make a single purpose thing. I mean, it's weird because like you want to dim a light. Yeah, I can build a dimmer with discrete components. But did you know I can build a smart dimmer probably easier than doing it with discrete components? You just grab it, throw a microcontroller on it, use pulse width modulation to turn something on or off, and it's like now you have like this dimmer that can remember where it was when you turn it on, and can actually fade on and fade off, and I shouldn't say it's not easy. Like a triac is an easier thing to build a dimmer out of, but it's not that much harder just to do it in a embedded software hardware type of a circuit than it is just to do it with the discrete components that would power a normal analog version of the same thing, at least from my limited understanding and kind of how I look at that. So I feel like, more and more it really is, it's not one or the other. It's whether you just want to do software or you want to do both software and hardware.
Mm-hmm. But it's interesting. Also, one thing I saw recently, because I was, with this computer, because I'm running actually an SSD in it. It didn't, because it's a few years old, didn't have an NVMe or NVMe. Is that what
whatever? That's what I've got on this.
The solid state memory.
That's crazy.
Storage
too, right? Like you just kind of strap it down to the motherboard, and you're like, there's a terabyte of storage.
And I don't know, have you compared the performance? Because it's interesting. Because when I'm doing some things on my desktop that's running the SSD, and then I go to my laptop, my that has an NVMe, I can actually know there's a noticeable difference, especially if I'm doing like encryption. So I have this bash script that runs like encryption library, so I can encrypt some files. And it basically, if I have like a folder of like 10 files I want to encrypt, I can see like a status of how each one being encrypted. I can tell like when I do with the NVMe, it just goes straight through really fast. If I do the SSD, it does it. You can tell it's working on a little bit more. So it's interesting how it's reading that. And I don't think it's even a processor. I was wondering, is it more the SSD or is it the processor? But
but the SSD on that?
I don't know. I don't think so.
Your SSD is connected by like a SATA connection, right?
Yeah.
So I don't think it's the SSD. I think it's SATA versus.
The connection. You think? Okay.
I think that's what it is. It's the bus.
Yeah.
It's the it's in.
That makes sense.
With what I understand, hardware people that listen, tell me I'm wrong. That'd be cool. Put a comment someplace. I think that's what we're supposed to do. Comment. Like, subscribe, all that kind of fun stuff. But I think it's the bus that's probably the different factor there. And I can't really say because I'm pretty sure my Surface, that is my portable, is, what is it again?
It's NVMe, right?
NVMe, yeah.
Yeah, I think
I'm pretty sure that's what my Surface is using, and that is what my desktop is using.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't have a comparative, a way to compare the difference between the two. But you're talking about two different systems too, right? And
sure, I don't know.
Encryption's a CPU intensive thing.
That's true, and I know I have a pretty hefty Xeon processor now. That's why I'm like, it can't be. I don't know. I'm curious to kind of see what is the actual bottleneck, or what's I haven't really tried. It's just kind of
probably run
just visually tried to performance test it. I haven't really done any.
You could probably run some
hard testing of it.
Figure that out. I don't know how you would, because you want to see the IO speed.
Yeah.
Versus like doing the encryption in memory, where you shouldn't have an IO bottleneck.
Correct. Yeah.
And that would tell you whether it's processor or whether the bottleneck's in the.
Because what the encryption library does, I'm using is the Ansible Vault. I think I talked about this before.
Yeah.
Basically, it reads you give it a key or password, and then it'll encrypt the file. But actually, it's just change the file, so it's writing to the file, so it's encrypting the file. So that's why I could tell, like, it actually doing like a file. I had some file IO, and I didn't know if that was where the performance issue is.
Probably have to, like I said, do some benchmarks. You could figure it if you really wanted to, but. All right, Mark. Well, what do you think? Another show?
I like the new setup here. You might have to clean up your room, but yeah.
I need to clean up my room. Yeah, there you go. It made my wife happy. So, and we've got actually somebody comment. Look at that. I'm going to bring it back up. Keith Cathy says, now I am internet famous. Keith, I can't know. I don't know what happened to my mouth there. Keith Casey says, now I'm internet famous. But Keith, you were already internet famous. So now we're internet famous, I guess. So look at this, Mark. Look at this. So Twitch. Is that what we're going?
Maybe Twitch next week. I think we should. I think that would be kind of crazy if we live stream on Twitch. We will definitely get some interaction there too.
Will we?
We will not like it, but we will definitely get some.
Oh, great! Is that what you're telling me? People just like watch us to mock us?
Yes, that's what will happen.
I'm not sure I'm ready for this. So what, are you going to give me some fancy thing to put around us?
Yeah, we're trying to make this look more professional.
So you know
give you a new background.
Everything. and then we'll get a background going. That'd be fun. And we'll have comments. Apparently if we go on Twitch. All right. DevFridayShow.com, best place to get the audio, and who knows where you might find us next week, right? Streaming everywhere. Look at this. I forgot to say, this is the what is this? This is the after show. I think I was going to open with, you know what we lack in professionalism, we make up with. I don't know what we make up.
Yeah, we are like the anti-professional developer show.
I'm going to say, I like that we do an hour podcast, and that's it. Like that part I like, is that we have a start, we have a finish. It's in that time frame. I think that the bumper music's probably better than most of the content that we produce here.
It only costs $5 too from Fiverr, right?
No, I don't know. Well, that was the guy. That was the voiceover. I think I had to pay for the music. I don't know where I got it from, honestly. I got it from some royalty-free thing that says we can do this. I think so. We got to figure out Twitch. Is that what we got to figure out?
Yeah, I think that'd be good. Like I said, I don't know if you want to set up the channel or not, but I don't know.
End the stream before we talk about how we'll do this. I'll do that. All right. Those that are watching online, this is all the bonus you get this week.